President Biden and the State of Our Union. The president facing a Republican-controlled House for the first time as he lays out the challenges facing the country.
Americans under pressure with inflation taking a big bite and fears a recession is looming. Internationally, tensions rising with China over that spy balloon and with Russia over the war in Ukraine.
No peace.
Here at home, policing in America in the spotlight once again after the beating death of Tyree Nichols and the president's approval rating underwater as he gets closer to announcing a re-election bid.
This higher than ever as the president tries to lay out his case that the state of our union is strong.
From NBC News, President Biden's State of the Union. Live from Washington, here are Lester Holt and Savannah Guthrie.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lester Holt here along with Savannah Guthrie. Just moments from now, President Joe Biden will enter the House chamber to give the State of the Union address. It comes with the president getting closer to launching a re-election bid.
Tonight could be the president's best
Chairman
chance
Milley
to
of
make
the Joint
his
Chiefs
case
of
to the
Staff.
nation that he deserves a second term, but he is facing major obstacles: inflation, looming House investigations,
Senator Elizabeth
and big
Warren,
fears about the direction the country is headed
Senator
in, both
Mazie
home and abroad.
Hirono of
Any
Hawaii.
moment now, we expect the Sergeant at Arms to announce the president's arrival. We have our full NBC News team here with us in studio. Kristen Welker, Chuck Todd, Hallie Jackson, as well as correspondents spread out around the world.
So let's get it started. We'll have NBC senior Capitol
China
Hill
Joe.
correspondent Garrett Hake lead us off. He's in
Not
the
sure what
House
that means. He
chamber.
just
We're already seeing the
popped their
dignitaries
balloon,
arrive,
baby.
members of the Supreme Court.
China
Garrett,
is not
give us
pleased
a
with
lay of the
Joe.
land.
That's
Well, Savannah, when
Stoyer.
President
He's
Biden arrives in the
majority
chamber in a minute here,
minority
he's going to see a very different chamber than in his previous speeches before Congress. First of all, this chamber is packed. There are no longer any COVID-19 restrictions in place. No masking, no social distancing, no requirements for testing, which means, unlike his previous two addresses to the nation, every seat will be filled. We are at standing room only at capacity. It could be a lively room, too, because many of those seats are filled with this new Republican House majority. When the president comes in through that center door, he's going to see the House Speaker Kevin McCarthy directly in front of him. Now, McCarthy and Biden have both praised each other so far. They have said they have worked well together so far. But McCarthy's members have been opening investigation after investigation into the Biden administration and into the president himself.
I don't know if McCarthy
have been
is
a thorn
praised
in his
Biden.
side in many ways, including an
that's
investigation or a hearing just today on the border crisis. There's really only one area of major agreement that they've even discussed, and that's the idea of confronting China more strongly, which has taken a back seat after the issue with the balloon over the last couple of weeks. So it could be a difficult room for President Biden. The good news, though, Speaker McCarthy warned his members this morning
Republicans
not to cause
hate
any kind of
Biden
scene,
more than
that
they
the
love
lights
this
are on,
country.
the cameras and mics are hot. He does
We've
not want to
seen
see any
their-
distractions today.
And
Practice.
President
Oh,
Biden
there we
about
go.
to enter the House chamber. Let's listen to the announcement from the House Sergeant at Arms.
The President of the United States.
Lady, get out of the way. We want to see the prez, baby. Otis. There's Dr. B.
President making his
Oh my
way into
God,
the
do not
chamber,
shake.
being
Is that George
greeted all
Santos?
Smiles right now. We'll see what it looks like at the end. But
Oh, no. it's
President on time, and we normally about 10 minutes of what you're seeing right now. Greetings before we expect him to take the podium and begin his remarks.
A lot of pressing of the flesh. Often in history, certain members of Congress wait, save those seats, want to get that face time with the president. As Garrett mentioned, this is a different chamber he's facing. The first time he'll address divided government as
Majority
president of the
Leader
United
Schumer
States.
behind
Members of the
him.
cabinet are there, members of the Supreme Court, and we'll see some of those officials as the president makes his way to the podium. We want to turn to Peter Alexander, our White House
Cipollini.
correspondent, who has been talking to officials
Cicilline.
about what we can expect from this State of the Union. Hi, Peter.
Representative Cicilline.
Savannah, good Evening to you. We just heard from the president as he left.
Damn,
the
I
White
think
House
I do
about
all right
moments
if I had to
ago.
do
He was
trivia
asked by
based on
reporters,
the
"What is the State
prominent
of the
U.S.
Union?" He
government
said it's in
officials, just
great
from
shape
quick recall.
and
I
getting
think I can do
better.
it.
But fundamentally, that is his challenge tonight, to try to bridge the gap between what has been strong economic news, the lowest unemployment rate in more than 50 years, inflation still too high, but certainly easing right now, and the dissatisfaction with the direction of the country from most Americans right now, who feel like the economy is not working for them. The White House believes that its policies, the president's accomplishments, are popular, but that Americans don't even know exactly what they are. They hope he can communicate that.
This guy
directly to
talking right
Americans
now,
tonight, with
he's
the
got it
takeaway
right.
being
Again, the
that
polling
Joe
indicates
Biden
that
has
like
your
the
back. He will say,
perception of the economy
"Jobs are
is really
coming
bad.
back and
The perception
pride
of Democrats
is coming
handling
back."
the
Watch
economy
him
is
use
bad. The perception of
2023
the economy
in the
itself
words
is
of one
bad.
White House
Even
official
though the facts and the
tonight,
data
as the
suggest
year of
otherwise.
implementation, to
Democrats
try to
have
put
got
all
to
of
get
those
better
efforts
about
into
selling
effect. I've
their
been struck by
accomplishments.
reading the
Facts don't
excerpts
speak for
ahead of
themselves.
tonight's speech.
It's not
This looks
enough
like the
to
president's
simply
gonna try to sort of
just
lower
create the lowest
temperature tonight,
unemployment in 60
effectively
years. You've got to be
staying away
talking
from
about it
those
all the time.
attacks on
All the
MAGA
time. All the
Republicans,
time. All
instead
the time.
saying that there was no
12 million
reason
jobs
that we
created,
can't work
you know, in the
together
first 2
on
years of
some
his
of the topics they
administration.
hope to get
You
done.
know,
Those
higher
bipartisan issues
wages
like opioid
than I
addiction and
think since
combating
2019,
cancer.
or
Of course,
higher
for this
than the
president,
pre-pandemic level
stakes
of
are
2019.
very high
And
right
all
now,
these
not
things have
just
got to be
for
talked
his
about.
administration
Bringing
in
back
this term, but for
manufacturing
his
jobs under
presidential
the
future. This,
CHIPS
in many
Act.
ways, is the unofficial
Facts don't
kickoff to
speak for themselves. They
2024,
have to keep talking
where,
about this.
among other things, his job tonight will be to try to convince Democrats that he's prepared for another 4 years.
And it's not, of course, Peter, not just
Shaking the hands of
domestic
the Chief
issues,
Justice,
but tonight's State of the Union comes amid
Secretary
rising
Blinken.
tensions with China over that spy balloon. Andrea Mitchell is NBC's chief Washington and chief foreign affairs correspondent. Andrea, some revisions to the president's speech we
talking to
understand
Justice Barrett
regarding
right now.
China.
It's like, listen, you've been a pain in my
Indeed,
ass.
I'm told the president is expected to talk about the
Minority
importance
Leader
of
Jeffries
the strategic
behind
relationship
him.
with China and standing up for sovereignty, but he is not going to talk about China's spy balloon or defend himself against Republican criticism like today's from Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, that the country learned on President Biden's watch. He said, the state of our union is apparently under Chinese surveillance from our own skies. The president will mention that Defense Secretary Austin was just in the Philippines to expand U.S. bases there as a deterrent
Great
to China.
powers
And the Pentagon says
spy
China's
on each
defense
other all the
minister
damn time.
refused a call from
This
Austin
is
after
like
the
part
shutdown.
of diplomacy and
As the president
espionage.
speaks
The
to
idea
Congress,
that
the
China
Navy and
has not
Coast
been
Guard are
surveilling
continuing
us
tonight
for the
the
past
round-the-clock
60
search for
years
debris
just
in the
untrue.
waters off
We
South
know they
Carolina.
have. We
And for
spy
the
on
first
them,
time,
they
a
spy
Chinese
on us,
balloon-
and as far as the spy
By the way,
balloons are
this is
concerned,
not the
three
first
of
time
them,
that a balloon from China has crossed into U.S.
transited the
airspace.
U.S.
They just
under the
discovered
Trump
it had had
administration.
3 times
Apparently,
under
he says he
President
had no
Trump
idea.
and once previously
At
under
least
President
Biden knew.
but never before
Biden
for
gave
this
the order to shoot
duration.
it down
And
safely
it was
and
not
responsibly,
known
and it's
until
been
now.
recovered.
And NBC
And we're
News is
analyzing
reporting
it
tonight
in
the
an FBI
administration
lab
is
in
working to
Virginia.
declassify how
So,
China
just
sent
this idea
balloons
that
to spy on
China
dozens
has never
of other
spied on the
countries
United
as
States
well.
ever
Lester.
until
And
Joe
we
Biden
saw the
came
president just a
along.
moment ago with
Bull
members
crap.
of the Joint Chiefs offering a salute to Chairman Milley, and now the president making his way to greet Kevin McCarthy, the new Speaker of the House, who will be looking over his shoulder.
All right, get it, Mr. Prez.
And Chuck Todd, reading the themes of this speech, this idea of unfinished business,
twice,
this
babe,
right at the
because he
beginning of the
twice.
2024 campaign for this
Like,
president.
listen, I know you're
Well,
the
it
boss.
should. I mean, this is an opportunity that he's going to have. Not many opportunities you get 30 million people, even supposedly fewer than before. 30 million, nowhere else you're going to get 30 million. So he ought to be starting to test out his reelection themes.
I have the high privilege and the distinct honor to present to you President of the United States.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you. You can smile. It's okay.
You can smile.
But they've all said he's running.
Look, you would assume that how he's going to talk about what he did in those first 2 years, if it's all about implementation, well, that sounds like a real act.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Vice President, our First Lady and Second Gentleman, good to see you guys up there. Members of Congress. By the way, Chief, I may need a court order. She gets to go to the game tomorrow, next week. I have to stay home. Got to work something out here. The cabinet, leaders of our military, Chief Justice, Associate Justice, and retired Justice of the Supreme Court, and to you, my fellow Americans. You know, I start tonight by congratulating the 118th Congress and the new Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy.
Third time he shook his hand. Oh, all right. Look at Vice President Harris like, oh, okay, whatever.
Speaker, I don't want to ruin your reputation, but I look forward to working with you. And I want to congratulate the new leader of the House Democrat, first African-American minority leader in history, Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries is definitely a firebrand behind the podium, and he's an effective speaker. Extremely effective speaker.
He won in spite of the fact I campaigned for him. Congratulations to the longest-serving leader in the history of the United States Senate, Mitch McConnell. Where are you, Mitch?
He's emerging from his sarcophagus. He's not even standing. Really, dude? Really?
And congratulations to Chuck Schumer, another another term as Senate Minority Leader. I think you, this time you have a slightly bigger majority, Mr. Leader. You're the majority leader. About that much bigger? Yeah, well, I tell you what. I want to give special recognition to someone who I think is going to be considered the greatest speaker in the history of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi.
All right, cringe moment there from President Biden, just a gaffe. That's okay. He stumbled. It happens. This is why I didn't watch American Idol and stuff like that, because every now and then you get a good singer who hit a sour note. And
the story of America is a story of progress and resilience, of always moving, of never, ever giving up. It's a story unique among all nations. A country that has emerged from every crisis we've ever entered stronger than we got into it. Look, folks, that's what we're doing again. 2 years ago, the economy was reeling. I stand here tonight after we've created, with the help of many people in this room, 12 million new jobs. More jobs created in 2 years than any president's created in 4 years, because of you all, because of the American people.
Of course, Kevin McCarthy still sits. Great job performance, low unemployment, but of course, Kevin McCarthy won the play. He's just going to come
2 years ago, COVID had shut down, our businesses were closed, our schools were robbed of so much, and today, COVID no longer controls our lives. And 2 years ago, democracy faced its greatest threats in the Civil War, and today, though bruised, our democracy remains unbowed and unbroken.
So said House Martell. There again, Kevin McCarthy won't even applaud that. He's pissed his coup didn't work.
We're writing the next chapter in the great American story, a story of progress and resilience. When world leaders ask me to define America, and they do, believe it or not, I can define it in one word, and I mean this: possibilities. We don't think anything is beyond our capacity. Everything is a possibility. You know, we're often told that Democrats and Republicans can't work together. But over the past 2 years, we've proved the cynics and naysayers wrong. Yes, we disagreed plenty. And yes, there were times when Democrats went alone. But time and again, Democrats and Republicans came together to defend a stronger and safer Europe. It came together to pass once in a generation infrastructure law, building bridges connecting our nation and our people. We came together to pass the most significant law ever, helping victims exposed to toxic burn pits. And in fact,
the PACT Act. The PACT Act, which Republicans, it was initially bipartisan, then pissed off Republicans, sabotaged the bill, delayed it. And Jon Stewart and others had to publicly shame them into passing.
I signed over 300 bipartisan pieces of legislation since becoming president, from reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act, to the Electoral Count Reform Act, the Respect for Marriage Act that protects the right to marry the person you love. And to my Republican friends, if we could work together the last Congress, there's no reason we can't work together and find consensus on important things in this Congress as well.
So McCarthy gave like a gentle, like, maybe possibly. Can we find consensus on investigating your son? That's what they're thinking.
You all are as formed as I am, but I think the people sent us a clear message. Fighting for the sake of fighting, power for the sake of power, conflict for the sake of conflict gets us nowhere. That's always been my vision of our country, and I know it's many of yours. To restore the soul of this nation, to rebuild the backbone of America, America's middle class, and to unite the country. We've been sent here to finish the job, in my view. For decades, the middle class has been hollowed out in more than, and not no one administration, but for a long time. Too many good-paying manufacturing jobs move overseas. Factories closed down. Once thriving cities and towns that many of you represent became shadows of what they used to be. And along the way, something else we lost: pride, our sense of self-worth. I ran for president to fundamentally change things, to make sure our economy works for everyone, so we can all feel that pride in what we do. To build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not from the top down. Because when the middle class does well, the poor have a ladder up, and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well. I know a lot of you always kid me for always quoting my dad, but my dad used to say, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. He really would say this. It's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. Well, folks, so let's look at the results. We're not finished yet by any stretch of the imagination, but unemployment rate is at 3.4%, a 50-year low.
Lower than it ever was under Donald Trump.
Near record.
3.4.
Near record unemployment.
Unemployment is almost always
Near record
lower
unemployment
under
for
Democratic
black and Hispanic
presidents.
workers. We've already created, your help, 800,000 good-paying manufacturing jobs, the fastest growth in 40 years.
And see, McCarthy doesn't find that. He won't applaud that at all.
Where is it written that America can't lead the world in manufacturing? And I don't know where that's written. For too many decades, we imported projects and exported jobs. Now, thanks to what you've all done, we're exporting American products and creating American jobs.
There we go.
Folks,
there again, very few Republicans and even McCarthy will not rise to applaud that.
Inflation has been a global problem because the pandemic disrupted our supply chains, and Putin's unfair and brutal war in Ukraine disrupted energy supplies as well as food supplies, blocking all that grain in Ukraine. But we're better positioned than any country on earth right now. But we have more to do. But here at home, inflation is coming down. Here at home, gas prices are down $1.50 from their peak. Food inflation is coming down, not fast enough, but coming down. Inflation has fallen every month for the last 6 months, while take-home pay has gone up. Additionally, over the last 2 years, a record 10 million Americans applied to start new businesses. 10 million.
Sign of thriving American entrepreneurship.
Every time.
Even Mitt Romney is standing for that.
Every time someone starts a small business is an act of hope. And Madam Vice President, I want to thank you for leading that effort to ensure that small businesses have access to capital and the historic laws we enacted that are going to just come into being. Standing here last year, I shared with you a story of American genius and possibilities. Semiconductors, small computer chips the size of a fingerprint that power everything, from cell phones to automobiles and so much more. These chips were invented in America. Let's get that straight. They were invented in America. We used to make 40% of the world's chips. In the last several decades, we lost our edge. We're down to only producing 10%. We all saw what happened during the pandemic when chip factories shut down overseas. Today's automobiles need 3,000 chips, each of those automobiles. But American automobiles couldn't make enough cars because there weren't enough chips. Car prices went up, people got laid off. So did everything from refrigerators to cell phones. We can never let that happen again. That's why we came together to pass the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act.
Everything Biden accomplished makes Republicans look bad. Of course, Republicans think in our pride. No, you're right. Politically, best interest, but it's sad the statesmanship is dead in the Republican Party.
I know I've been criticized for saying this, but I'm not changing my view. We're going to make sure the supply chain for America begins in America. The supply chain begins in America.
Good. Donald Trump vowed to bring back American manufacturing, but we actually received a net deficit of manufacturing jobs on his watch. We exported more manufacturing jobs to other countries.
New manufacturing jobs without this law.
Before Biden the law
kicks in. With this new law, we're going to create hundreds of thousands of new jobs across the country. And I mean all across the country, throughout not just the coast, but through the middle of the country as well. That's going to come from companies that have announced more than $300 billion in investment in American manufacturing over the next few years. Outside of Columbus, Ohio, Intel is building semiconductor factories on 1,000 acres, literally a field of dreams. It's going to create 10,000 jobs, that one investment, 7,000 construction jobs, 3,000 jobs in those factories once they're finished. They call them factories. Jobs paying an average of $130,000 a year, and many do not require a college degree.
So, Spiral Trigger, is there anything Biden can do to make Republicans buy in, or does that have to happen within their party? Most likely. I mean, you see it right now. We are so partisan in this country that Republicans want to hurt Biden politically more than they want to celebrate American successes because they're worried they are reflective of Biden. That's where their priorities are. And yes, every now and then you do see this on the Democrat side, but nowhere near to this extent. That's where their priorities are. And I don't know if their leaders can change it either. It's so ingrained in the culture of the party at this point, because it's people like Donald Trump and his Trump light sycophants, so people like Ron DeSantis and others who like echo Trump sentiments. It's people like McCarthy, but it's also from the bottom up. There are people that I know in my personal life who are conservative, a few of them, but that they hate Biden. Like, they want Biden to fail more than they want the country to succeed. So it's just a cultural issue.
Modern infrastructure. But now we're coming back because we came together and passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, the largest investment in infrastructure since President Eisenhower's interstate highway system.
Donald Trump promised for 4 years to get an infrastructure bill, and he failed. Both when his party controlled both chambers of Congress and when they didn't. He failed for 4 years. Biden got it done in less than
We've funded over 20,000 projects, including major airports from Boston, Atlanta to Portland. Projects that are going to put thousands of people to work rebuilding our highways, our bridges, our railroads, our tunnels, ports, airports, clean water, high-speed internet, all across America. Urban, rural, tribal. And folks, we're just getting started. We're just getting started.
Getting back to it real quick about your question, Spiral. Again, I think it's going to have to be, this is going to have to involve pressure from multiple angles. It's going to have to come from good faith
Republican friends who voted against it as well. But I still get asked to fund the projects in those districts as well. But don't worry. I promised I'd be a president for all Americans. We'll fund these projects.
He's right. So many Republicans who voted against the bipartisan infrastructure bill are requesting the funds and taking credit for the distribution of funds. Yeah, McCarthy's pissed, but I'm glad he called him out there.
This law will further unite all of America. Projects like Brent Spence Bridge in Kentucky over the Ohio River, built 60 years ago, badly needed repairs, one of the nation's most congested freight routes, carrying $2 billion worth of freight every single day across the Ohio River. And folks, we've been talking about fixing it for decades, but we're really finally going to get it done. Yes. I went there last month with Democrats and Republicans, and from both states, to deliver a commitment of $1.6 billion for this project. And while I was there, I met a young woman named Sarah, who's here tonight. I don't know where Sarah is. Is she up in the box? I don't know. Sarah, how are you? Well, Sarah, for 30 years, I learned, she told me she'd been a proud member of the Iron Workers Local 44, known as the Cowboys in the Sky. The folks who built Cincinnati's skyline. Sarah said she can't wait to be 10 stories above the Ohio River building that new bridge. God bless her. That's pride. And that's what we're also building. We're building back pride. Look, we're also replacing poisonous lead pipes that go into 10 million homes in America, 400,000 school and child care centers. So every child in America,
Let's see if
every
the
child in
Republicans
America can
applaud.
drink the water instead of having permanent damage to their brain. Look.
There we go. Finally.
We're making
What are you going to
sure.
stand for it? You won't even stand for it. You see what I'm saying, guys?
We're making sure
Their enthusiasm about
that
the health and
every
safety
community,
of children is a
every
distant
community in America
second
has access to
wanting
affordable high-speed
Biden
internet.
to fail.
No parent should have to drive by McDonald's parking lot to help them do their homework online with their kids, which many thousands were doing across the country. And when we do these projects, and again, I get criticized for this, but I make no excuses for it. We're going to buy American. We're going to buy America. Folks, and it's totally consistent with international trade rules. Buy America has been the law since 1933, but for too long, past administrations, Democrat and Republican, have fought to get around it. Not anymore. Tonight, I'm announcing new standards that require all construction materials used in federal infrastructure projects to be made in America. Made in America.
See, he won't even applaud for that
I mean it. Lumber, glass, drywall, fiber optic cable. And on my watch, American roads, bridges, and American highways are going to be made with American products as well. Folks, my economic plan is about investing in places and people.
He sat
that
on
have been
Gorilla
forgotten.
Glue.
So
Yeah.
many of you listening to you tonight. I know you feel it. So many of you felt like you've just simply been forgotten. Amid the economic upheaval of the past 4 decades, too many people have been left behind and treated like they're invisible. Maybe that's you watching from home. Remember the jobs that went away. You remember them, don't you? The folks at home remember them. You wonder whether the path even exists anymore for your children to get ahead without having to move away. Well, that's why I get that. That's why we're building an economy where no one's left behind. Jobs are coming back. Pride is coming back. Because choices we made in the last several years. You know, this is, in my view, a blue-collar blueprint to rebuild America and make a real difference in your lives at home. For example, too many of you lay in bed at night like my dad did, staring at the ceiling, wondering what in God's name happens if
For
your
Republicans, it
spouse
depends on
gets
what color
cancer,
skins have, whether Republicans
child
want to
gets
make things better for them or
deadly
not.
ill,
Unfortunately,
or
too
something
often,
happens to
that's
you.
true. There's still a
What are you
not
gonna
only a
do? Do you have money to
classism, but a
pay for those
racism that
medical
animates
bills?
the Republican
Or
Party.
you're going to have to sell the house
And
or
I
try
imagine
to
it
get a
would
second
be
mortgage on it.
many disproportionately low-income
I get it.
areas that will benefit from this.
The Inflation
'Cause I
Reduction
imagine
Act that I
they're the
signed into
ones
law.
who have the most
We're
lead
taking
pipes.
on powerful interests to bring healthcare costs down so you can sleep better at night with more security. You know, we pay more for prescription drugs than any nation in the world. Let me say it again. We pay more for prescription drugs than any major nation on earth. For example, 1 in 10 Americans has diabetes. Many of you in this chamber do, and in the audience. But every day, millions need insulin to control their diabetes so they can literally stay alive. Insulin's been around for over 100 years. The guy who invented it didn't even patent it because he wanted it to be available for everyone. It costs the drug companies roughly $10 a vial to make that insulin. Packaging it all, you may get up to $13. But Big Pharma has been unfairly charging people hundreds of dollars, $400 to $500 a month, making record profits. Not anymore. Not anymore.
See? Only a handful of Republicans will rise and clap for that. That's what I'm saying, guys. They hate this country. When a Democrat leads this country, Republicans hate this country. 100%. At least Republican leaders.
So many things that we did are only now coming to fruition. We said we were doing this, and we said we passed the law to do it, but people didn't know because the law didn't take effect until January 1 of this year. We capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors on Medicare.
Spiral says, it seems the Republicans will only buy in if we say they push for it to give them credit, because what are policies they stand on that's not in opposition to Dems?
There are millions of other Americans.
I don't even think then,
are not
like even then when we give them some degree of credit for the bipartisan infrastructure bill,
with type 1 diabetes,
very few of them will actually stand up and applaud it, right? Maybe the ones who actually voted
finish
for
the
it.
job this time.
Even giving them credit, there's no way to win with these people. I'm convinced that Biden could go out and actually just say, okay, Kevin, what policies do you want me to endorse here, just as a test? And he could do it word for word. And I feel like 50% of Republicans still would not stand up and applaud him because they hate him more than they even love their own policies. Because, like you said, they don't have any.
Effect until 2025.
They're a disloyal opposition.
Costs out-of-pocket drug costs for seniors on Medicare at a maximum of $2,000 a year. You don't have to pay more than $2,000 a year, no matter how much your drug costs are. Because you know why? You all know it. Many of you, like many in my family, have cancer. You know the drugs can range from $10,000, $11,000, $14,000, $15,000 for the cancer drugs. And if drug prices rise faster than inflation, drug companies are going to have to pay Medicare back the difference. We're finally giving Medicare the power to negotiate drug prices. Bringing down prescription drug costs doesn't just save seniors money. It cuts the federal deficit by billions of dollars.
McCarthy won't even applaud that. I thought we were about fiscal responsibility.
Because these prescription
He doesn't care.
Are drugs purchased by Medicare to keep their commitment to the seniors. Well, guess what? Instead of paying $400 or $500 a month, you're paying $15. That's a lot of savings for the federal government. And by the way, why wouldn't we want that? Now, some members here are threatening, and I know it's not an official party position, so I'm going to exaggerate, but threatening to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. As my coach, that's okay, that's fair. As my football coach used to say, lots of luck in your senior year. Make no mistake, if you try anything to raise the cost of prescription drugs, I will veto it. Look, I'm proud to say,
even Kirsten Sinema is not applauding that. Do you see that, guys?
A record 16 million people are enrolled in the Affordable Care Act. And thanks to the law I signed last year, saving millions are saving $800 a year on their premiums. And by the way, that law was written and the benefit expires in 2025. So my plea to some of you, at least in this audience, let's finish the job and make these savings permanent. Expand coverage of Medicaid. Look, the Inflation Reduction Act is also the most significant investment ever in climate change. Ever. Lowering utility bills, creating American jobs, leading the world to a clean energy future. I visited the devastating aftermath of record floods, droughts, storms, and wildfires. from Arizona to New Mexico to all the way up to the Canadian border. More timber has been burned, that I've observed from helicopters, than the entire state of Missouri. And we don't have global warming? Not a problem. In addition to emergency recovery, from Puerto Rico to Florida to Idaho, we're rebuilding for the long term. New electric grids that are able to weather major storms and not prevent those forest fires. Roads and water systems withstand the next big flood. Clean energy to cut pollution and create jobs in communities often left behind. We're going to build 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations installed across the country by tens of thousands of IBEW workers. And we're helping families save more than $1,000 a year with tax credits to purchase electric vehicles and efficient
I wonder what Trump will say after this,
energy
probably
efficient
coinciding with Huckabee Sanders' speech.
Historic
after this.
conservation
Imagine
efforts
he's ranting
from
on Trump
responsible
Central right
stewards
now.
of our land. Let's face reality.
Maybe he'll stand.
The climate
if
crisis
he says
doesn't care if
PPP
you're
loans will
in a
be
red
forgiven.
or blue state.
That'll be socialism, though. We
It's
don't
an
want to do
existential
that.
threat.
That's socialism.
We have an obligation, not to ourselves, but to our children and grandchildren, to confront it. I'm proud of how America, at last, is stepping up to the challenge. We're still going to need oil and gas for a while. But guess what? No, we do. But there's so much more to do. We got to finish the job. And we pay for these investments in our future by finally making the wealthiest and biggest corporations begin to pay their fair share. Just begin. Look, I'm a capitalist. I'm a capitalist, but pay your fair share. I think a lot of you at home agree with me and many people that you know. The tax system is not fair. It is not fair. Look, the idea that in 2020, 55 of the largest corporations in America, the Fortune 500, made $40 billion in profits and paid zero in federal taxes? Zero? Folks, it's simply not fair. But now, because of the law I signed, billion-dollar companies have to pay a minimum of 15%. God love them. 15%. That's less than a nurse pays. And I need to be crystal clear. I said at the very beginning, under my plans, as long as I'm president, nobody earning less than $400,000 will pay an additional penny in taxes. Nobody, not one penny. But let's finish the job. There's more to do. We have to reward work, not just wealth. Pass my proposal for the billionaire minimum tax. You know, there's 1,000 billionaires in America. It's up from about 600 in the beginning of the term. But no billionaire should be paying a lower tax rate than a school teacher or firefighter. I mean it. Think about it. I mean, look. I know you aren't enthusiastic about that, but think about it. Think about it. Have you noticed Big Oil just reported its profits, record profits? Last year they made $200 billion in the midst of a global energy crisis. I think it's outrageous. Why? They invested too little of that profit to increase domestic production. And when I talk to a couple of them, they say, we're afraid you're going to shut down all the oil wells, all the oil refineries anyway, so why should we invest in them? I said, we're going to need oil for at least another decade. And that's going to exceed and beyond that. We're going to need it. Production. If they had, in fact, invested in the production to keep gas prices down, instead, they used the record profits to buy back their own stock, rewarding the CEOs and shareholders. Corporations ought to do the right thing. That's why I propose we quadruple the tax on corporate stock buybacks and encourage long-term investments. They'll still make considerable profit,
Crowd responses like it's a movie theater is
Let's
kind of
finish
funny.
the job
It is
and
true.
close the loopholes that allow very wealthy to avoid paying their taxes. Instead of cutting the number of audits for wealthy taxpayers, I just signed a law to reduce the deficit by $114 billion by cracking down on wealthy tax cheats. That's being fiscally responsible.
Even Manchin's applauding for that fiscal responsibility.
In the last 2 years,
okay, I'll give you 3.
my administration has cut the deficit by more than $1.7 trillion, the largest deficit reduction in American history.
Why
Under the
won't Kevin
previous
McCarthy
administration,
applaud that?
the American deficit went up 4 years in a row. Because those record deficits, no president added more to the national debt in any 4 years than my predecessor. Nearly 25% of the entire national debt that took over 200 years to accumulate was added by just one administration alone, the last one. They're the facts. Check it out.
Oh, they
Check
don't
it out.
like that. Yeah, baby.
How did Congress respond to that debt? They did the right thing. They lifted the debt ceiling 3 times without preconditions or crisis. They paid American bills to prevent an economic disaster in the country. So tonight I'm asking the Congress to follow suit. Let's commit here tonight to the full faith and credit of the United States of America will never, ever be questioned. Some of my Republican friends want to take the economy hostage. I get it, unless I agree to their economic plans. All of you at home should know what those plans are. Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. No, I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you. Look, folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved into being threatened to default on the debt if we don't respond. Folks,
Good for Biden taking the offense there. And the abuse.
so folks, as we all apparently agree, Social Security and Medicare is off the books now, right? They're not to be spent. All right.
Nice. Well done. Well done,
We got
Mr.
unanimity.
President. Well done.
Social Security and Medicare are a lifeline for millions of seniors. Americans have to pay into them from the very first paycheck they started. So tonight, let's all agree, and apparently we are, let's stand up for seniors. Stand up and show them. We will not cut Social Security. We will not cut Medicare. Those benefits belong to the American people. They earned it. And if anyone tries to cut Social Security, which apparently no one's going to do, and if anyone tries to cut Medicare, I'll stop them. I'll veto it. And look, I'm not going to let them be taken away. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. But apparently it's not going to be a problem. Next month, when I offer my fiscal plan, I ask my Republican friends to lay down their plan as well. I really mean it. Let's sit down together and discuss our mutual plans together. Let's do that. I can tell you, the plan I'm going to show you is going to cut the deficit by another $2 trillion. And it won't cut a single bit of Medicare or Social Security. In fact, we're going to extend the Medicare Trust Fund at least 2 decades, because that's going to be the next target. How do we keep it solvent, right? Well, will not raise tax on anyone making under 400 grand, but we'll pay for it the way we talked about tonight by making sure that the wealthy and big corporations pay their fair share. Look. Here's the deal.
The glue wore off. Yeah, you're right. And I love
just
how
taking
Biden
advantage
baited
of the
them into
tax
doing
code.
that, right?
They're taking
He took
advantage
the
of the
abuse and then
American
like
consumer.
redirected like
Here's
judo.
my
He's like,
message to
okay,
all
so
of you
that's
out
you
there.
saying that you
Have
will
your
not
back.
cut Medicare or Social
We're already
Security.
preventing
They
Americans
stood up
from
and
receiving
applauded it.
surprise
So
medical bills.
Democrats, mainstream
Stopping
media,
$1
left-wing
billion
media needs to be
surprise bills
playing
per month
that
so
clip
far.
again and again and again and again and
We're
again.
protecting
So now you're publicly committing
seniors' life
that you
savings
will not cut or
by
sunset
cracking down
Social
on nursing
Security or
homes
Medicare.
that
Not one
commit
penny.
fraud,
And if they're
endanger
like, well,
patients' safety,
well,
prescribe drugs
then they
that are
can
not
play that
needed.
clip again
Millions
and
of
again
Americans
and
can
again.
now save thousands of dollars because they can finally get a hearing aid over the counter without a prescription. Look, capitalism without competition is not capitalism. It's extortion. It's exploitation. Last year, I cracked down with the help of many of you on foreign shipping companies that were making you pay higher prices for every good coming into the country. I signed a bipartisan bill that cut shipping costs by 90%, helping American farmers, businessmen, and consumers. Let's finish the job. Pass the bipartisan legislation to strengthen antitrust enforcement and prevent big online platforms from giving their own products an unfair advantage. My administration is also taking on junk fees, those hidden surcharges too many companies use to make you pay more. For example, we're making airlines show you the full ticket price up front, refund your money if your flight is canceled or delayed. We've reduced exorbitant bank overdrafts by saving consumers
I'm
more
excited
than
about
$1
this,
billion a year.
the reduction of these junk
We're
fees
cutting
that he's
credit
pushing
card
for. This
late
is really
fees
good.
by
But I want to address what
75%
Spiral
from
says here. I do
$30
appreciate
to
Biden
$8.
being stern in a direct response to Biden/Dems being pushovers. He took the heat directly and came off
Junk
strong.
fees
That led to McCarthy to stand
may
and
not
clap.
matter to
Yeah,
very
that
wealthy,
was
but they matter to
excellent
most
political
other folks in
judo.
homes
I was
like the one I
worried,
grew up
especially
in,
given
like
his
many of you
stutter,
did. They
that
add
he
up
would
to hundreds of
stumble and
dollars a
just kind of
month.
get locked into a loop.
They make it harder
But
for you to pay
he
your bills and
rebounded
afford that
quickly.
family trip.
Right. This man has
I know
made
how
a much
unfair it
sterner
feels
stuff than I think
when
that
a
we
company
think.
overcharges you
Imagine
and
what
gets
Donald
away
Trump
with
would
it.
have done in a similar
Not
situation.
anymore.
He might have insulted
We've written
back.
a bill
He
to
would have been
stop
just
it all. It's called the
visibly,
Junk Fee Prevention Act.
derailed, right?
We're going to ban
Biden
surprise
didn't do
resort
that. He
fees.
took the
that
disrespect and
hotels
redirected it
charge
into
on
a
your
political
bill.
and optics win
Those fees can
by
cost up to
baiting
$90 a night
Republicans
at
to
hotels
publicly
that
commit
aren't even resorts.
to not defunding Social Security or Medicare
The
after
idea
years of vowing to
that
do
cable,
just that.
internet, and cell phone companies
Good for them.
can charge you $200 or more
Good for him.
if you decide to switch to another provider. Give me a break. We can stop service fees on tickets to concerts and sporting events and make companies disclose all the fees up front. And we'll prohibit airlines from charging $50 round trip for a family just to be able to sit together. Baggage fees are bad enough. Airlines can't treat your child like a piece of baggage. Americans are tired of being. We're tired of being played for suckers. So pass the Junk Fee Prevention Act so companies stop ripping us off. For too long, workers have been getting stiffed, but not anymore. We're beginning to restore the dignity of work. For example, I should have known this, but I didn't until 2 years ago. 30 million workers have to sign non-compete agreements for the jobs they take. 30 million. So a cashier at a burger place can't walk across town and take the same job at another burger place and make a few bucks more. It just changed. But they just changed it because we exposed it. That was part of the deal, guys. Look it up. But not anymore. We're banning those agreements so companies have to compete for workers and pay them what they're worth.
I love this so far because, not to say that it won't backfire, but every time Republicans attempt to throw Biden off with their outbursts, which, by the way, I remember a time when that was incredibly disrespectful.
On my left with the right. I'm so sick and tired of companies breaking the law by preventing workers from organizing. Pass the PRO Act. Because business have a right.
So anyway,
Workers have a right to form a union.
they're trying to throw him off with flagrant, unprecedented disrespect. We never heard Democrats do this when President Trump gave his State of the Union address. Republicans are breaking civility norms in a way we've just never seen before. And it's not throwing Biden off, which again is surprising to me given his age and his stutter. But I love it. That's Scranton Joe, baby. It seems like he basks in that sort of verbal confrontation.
Tens of millions of parents some breathing room and cut child poverty in half to the lowest level in history. And by the way, when we do all these things, we increase productivity. We increase economic growth. So let's finish the job and get more families access to affordable, quality housing. Let's get seniors who want to stay in their homes the care they need to do so. Let's give more breathing room to millions of family caregivers looking after their loved ones. Pass my plan so we get seniors and people with disabilities the home care and services they need. And support the workers who are doing God's work. These plans are fully paid for and we can afford to do them. Restoring the dignity of work means making education an affordable ticket to the middle class. You know, when we made public education, 12 years of it, universal in the last century, we made the best educated, best paid, we became the best educated, best paid nation in the world. But the rest of the world's caught up. It's caught up. Jill, my wife, who teaches full time, has an expression. I hope I get it right, kid. Any nation that out-educates us is going to out-compete us. Any nation that out-educates is going to out-compete us. Folks, we all know 12 years of education is not enough to win the economic competition of the 21st century. If you want to have the best educated workforce, let's finish the job by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. Studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school and go on to earn a 2 or 4 year degree, no matter their background they came from. Let's give public school teachers a raise.
Republicans won't stand for that. I'm telling you, it's amazing. I don't think if Biden came out and said, let's give cops a raise, they wouldn't applaud that either unless he said racist cops only.
By reducing student debt, increasing Pell Grants,
then they would stand up.
For working and middle-class families. Let's finish the job and connect students to career opportunities starting in high school. Provide access to 2 years of community college, the best career training in America in addition to being a pathway to a 4-year degree. Let's offer every American a path to a good career, whether they go to college or not. And folks, in the midst of the COVID crisis, when schools were closed and we were shutting down everything, let's recognize how far we came in the fight against the pandemic itself. While the virus is not gone, thanks to the resilience of the American people and the ingenuity of medicine, we've broken the COVID grip on us. COVID deaths are down by 90%. We've saved millions of lives and opened up our country. We opened our country back up, and soon we'll end the public health emergency. But that's called a public health emergency. But we'll remember the toll and pain that's never going to go away. More than 1 million Americans lost their lives to COVID. 1 million. Families grieving, children orphaned, empty chairs at the dining room table constantly reminding you that she used to sit there. Remembering them, we remain vigilant. We still need to monitor dozens of variants and support new vaccines and treatments. So Congress needs to fund these efforts and keep America safe. And as we emerge from this crisis stronger, we're also got to double down on prosecuting criminals who stole relief money meant to keep workers and small businesses afloat.
Damn, Janet Yellen is so short compared to Secretary Austin.
Before I came to office, you remember, during that campaign, the big issue was about inspector generals who would protect taxpayers' dollars who were sidelined.
General. Mr. President.
They were
Come
fired.
on. Inspectors General.
Many people said we don't need them. And fraud became rampant. Last year, I told you the watchdogs are back. Since then, we've recovered billions of taxpayers' dollars. Now let's triple the anti-fraud strike force going after these criminals, double the statute of limitations on these crimes, and crack down on identity fraud by criminal syndicates stealing billions of dollars from the American people. And the data shows that for every dollar we put into fighting fraud, the taxpayers get back at least 10 times as much. It matters. It matters. Look, COVID left its scars, like the spike in violent crime in 2020, the first year of the pandemic. We have an obligation to make sure all people are safe. Public safety depends on public trust, as all of us know. But too often that trust is violated. Joining us tonight are the parents of Tyree Nichols. Welcome. I had to bury Tyree last week. As many of you personally know, there's no words to describe the heartache or grief of losing a child. But imagine if you lost that child at the hands of the law. Imagine having to worry whether your son or daughter came home from walking down the street, or playing in the park, or just driving a car. Most of us in here have never had to have the talk that brown and black parents have had to have with their children. Bo, Hunter, Ashley, my children, I never had to have the talk with them. I never had to tell them if a police officer pulls you over, turn your interior lights on right away. Don't reach for your license. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Imagine having to worry like that every single time your kid got in a car. Here's what Tyree's mother shared with me when I spoke to her. When I asked her how she finds the courage to carry on and speak out. The faith of God, she said her son was, quote, a beautiful soul, and something good will come of this. Imagine how much courage and courage that takes. It's up to us, to all of us. We all want the same thing. Neighborhoods free of violence. Law enforcement who earns the community's trust. Just as every cop, when they pin on that badge in the morning, has a right to be able to go home at night, so does everybody else out there. Our children have a right to come home safely. Equal protection under the law is a covenant we have with each other in America. We know police officers put their lives on the line every single night and day. And we know we ask them in many cases to do too much, to be counselors, social workers, psychologists, responding to drug overdoses, mental health crises, and so much more. In one sense, we ask much too much of them. I know most cops and their families are good, decent, honorable people, the vast majority. But they risk.
Now they'll stand up and applaud. I'm telling you, if he threw in the word racist,
and they
he was talking about racist cops, they would have stood up and celebrated
every time they put that
more.
shield on. But what happened to Tyree in Memphis happens too often. We have to do better. Give law enforcement the real training they need. Hold them to higher standards. Help them succeed in keeping us safe. We also need more first responders and professionals to address the growing mental health, substance abuse challenges. More resources to reduce violent crime and gun crime. More community intervention programs. More investment in housing, education, and job training. All this can help prevent violence in the first place. And when police officers or police departments violate the public trust, they must be held accountable. With the support of the families of victims, civil rights groups, and law enforcement, I signed an executive order for all federal officers, banning chokeholds, restricting no-knock warrants, and other key elements of the George Floyd Act. Let's commit ourselves to make the words of Tyler's mom true. Something good must come from this. Something good. And all of us, folks, it's difficult, but it's simple. All of us in this chamber, we need to rise to this moment. We can't turn away. Let's do what we know in our hearts that we need to do. Let's come together to finish the job on police reform. Do something. Do something. That was the plea of parents who lost their children in Uvalde. I met with every one of them. Do something about gun violence. Thank God. Thank God we did.
See, he won't even stand up for that.
Passing the most sweeping gun safety law in 3 decades.
He really is. The leadership of the Republican Party is so cowardly, morally, and
That the
politically.
majority of responsible gun owners already support.
Is McCarthy only clapping depending on if he sees
Enhanced
other
background checks for 18
Republicans
to 21
clapping?
years
His
old.
claps
Red
are always
flag
slightly delayed
laws.
from everybody else.
Keeping
I
guns
wouldn't be
out of the hands of
surprised.
people who are
This is not a
dangerous
man
to
who
themselves
leads,
and
right?
others.
And especially with the
But we
razor-thin
know our work
margins
is
that
not
he has
done.
in the
Joining us
House,
tonight
and the fact that
is
any
Brandon
single
Say,
one of
a
his
26-year-old hero.
caucus can initiate
Brandon
a
put
vacate the
his
chair
college
motion,
dreams on
right? So any
hold
one of them
to be
at
his
any time
mom's side.
can trigger a vote
His mom's
to
side
remove
when
him
she was
from the
dying from
speakership.
cancer.
So it makes sense that he'd be like, or are you clapping? Can I clap now? Of course, because he's not a leader.
Brandon now works at the dance studio started by his grandparents. And 2 weeks ago, during the Lunar New Year celebrations, he heard the studio door close, and he saw a man standing there pointing a semi-automatic pistol at him. He thought he was going to die, but he thought about the people inside. And in that instant, he found the courage to act and wrestled a semi-automatic pistol away from the gunman who had already killed 11 people in another dance studio. 11. He saved lives. It's time we do the same. Ban assault weapons now. Ban them now. Once and for all. I led the fight to do that in 1994. And in 10 years, that ban was law and mass shootings went down. After we let it expire in the Republican administration, mass shootings tripled. Let's finish the job and ban these assault weapons. And let's also come together on immigration. Make it a bipartisan issue once again. No, we now have a record number of personnel working to secure the border, arresting 8,000 human smugglers, seizing over 23,000 pounds of fentanyl in just the last several months. We've launched a new border plan last month. Unlawful migration from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela has come down 97% as a consequence of that. But American border problems won't be fixed until Congress acts. If we don't pass my comprehensive immigration reform, at least pass my plan to provide the equipment and officers to secure the border. And a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, those on temporary status, farm workers, essential workers. Here in the People's House, it's our duty to protect all the people's rights and freedoms. Congress must restore the right and the... Congress must restore the right that was taken away in Roe v. Wade and protect Roe v. Wade. Give every woman a consular right. The Vice President and I are doing everything to protect access to reproductive health care and safeguard patient safety. Well, already more than a dozen states are enforcing extreme abortion bans. Make no mistake about it. If Congress passes a national ban, I will veto it. But let's also pass the Bipartisan Equality Act to ensure LGBTQ Americans, especially transgender young people, can live with safety and dignity. Our strength is not just the example of our power, but the power of our example. Let's remember the world's watching. I spoke in this chamber 1 year ago, just days after Vladimir Putin unleashed his brutal attack against Ukraine. A murderous assault, evoking images of death and destruction Europe suffered in World War II. Putin's invasion has been a test for the ages, a test for America, a test for the world. Would we stand for the most basic of principles? Would we stand for sovereignty? We stand for the right of people to live free of tyranny?
Spiral Treasurer says, why are they speaking loudly like that at the State of the Union? No respect at all for President or the position and role they have. That's what I was saying earlier. The level of disrespect that Biden is getting from the Republican Party is unprecedented. George W. Bush never got this from Democrats. Donald Trump never got this from Democrats. I'm sure there were a couple of rowdy moments, like maybe from Rashida Tlaib or AOC or, you know, Bernie Sanders at some point. I doubt it, but nothing like this, right? When
we built a global coalition.
even during President Obama, there was this viral moment during one of President Obama's State of the Union speeches where he called a liar. The guy said one time, "You're a liar." And it was about the Affordable Care Act, the ACA. And he was formally censured. They censured him. And it got actually support from Republicans as well. That is how disrespect towards a sitting president was treated, right? And here's the thing. You may not believe in civility politics. Like, in the United Kingdom, the British Parliament, I mean, they talk smack at each other all the damn time during Prime Minister's questions, right? So the Prime Minister gets, you know, heated, spicy, verbal confrontations all the time. So it's not something that we're used to here. But again, it tends to, it's right now what's so jarring about it is, number one, Republicans would be apoplectic if Democrats ever spoke to a Republican president the way that Republicans are speaking to a Democratic president. And it's also escalated. The last time there was a Democratic president, one guy shouted the word liar and got punished for it.
We seek competition.
Now, look, I mean, there was like 5 minutes worth of, you're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar from Republicans. Will they be punished for it? No, because Kevin McCarthy is Speaker. There's no way he's going to censure or rebuke anybody in his caucus for speaking this abuse to the president. But anyway, the civility is so escalatory and it's so one-sided. So, as much as I'm kind of a sucker for decorum, I'm a civics nerd, I'm a politics nerd. I love the idea that you respect certain offices. Like even with Trump, for the longest time, even though he is the most contemptible human being in terms of whoever sat in the presidency in the Oval Office in modern history, I still refer to him as President Trump because there is something about the inherent importance and dignity of the office.
But make no mistake about it.
But that's not something, I mean, that's not something that, again, they reciprocate. So maybe Democrats should start acting more like Republicans in this respect. He says, it's not even subtle. Groans are fine, I guess, but actively shouting arguments multiple times during the State of the Union seems unprecedented. Certainly to this extent.
We face serious challenges across the world. But in the past 2 years, democracies have become stronger, not weaker. Autocracy has grown weaker, not stronger. Name me a world leader who changed places with Xi Jinping. Name me one. Name me one. America's rallying the world to meet those challenges, from climate to global health, to food insecurity, to terrorism, to territorial aggression. Allies are stepping up, spending more and doing more. Look, the bridges we're forming between partners in the Pacific and those in the Atlantic, and those who bet against America are learning how wrong they are. It's never, ever been a good bet to bet against America. Never.
And there again, Kevin McCarthy won't applaud. I'm telling you guys, It's bananas. Nobody hates this country quite as much as a member of the Republican leadership. Hey, okay. Spiral trigger? Looks like you're right.
When I came to
People stood
office,
up and
most
applauded,
assured
so
that
he finally did
bipartisanship
himself.
assumed was impossible, but never believed it. That's why a year ago I offered a unity agenda to the nation as I stood here. We made real progress together. We passed a law making it easy for doctors to prescribe effective treatments for opioid addiction. We passed the gun safety law, making historic investments in mental health. We launched the ARPA-H drive for breakthrough in the fights against cancer, Alzheimer's, and diabetes, and so much more. We passed the Heath Robinson PACT Act, named after the late Iraq War veteran whose story about exposure to toxic burn kits I shared here last year. I understand something about those burn pits, but there's so much more to do. We can do it together. Joining us tonight is a father named Doug from Newton, New Hampshire. He wrote Jill, my wife, a letter, and me as well, about his courageous daughter, Courtney. A contagious laugh, his sister's best friend, her sister's best friend. He shared a story all too familiar to millions of Americans and many of you in the audience. Courtney discovered pills in high school. It spiraled into addiction and eventually death from a fentanyl overdose. She was just 20 years old. Describing the last 8 years without her, Doug said, "There's no worse pain." Yet their family has turned pain to purpose, working to end the stigma and change laws. He told us he wants to start a journey toward American recovery. Doug, we're with you. Fentanyl is killing more than 70,000 Americans a year. You got it. So let's launch a major surge to stop fentanyl production in the sale and trafficking, with more drug detection machines, inspection cargoes, stop pills and powder at the border. Working with couriers like FedEx to inspect more packages for drugs. Strong penalties to crack down on fentanyl trafficking. Second, let's do more on mental health, especially for our children. When millions of young people are struggling with bullying, violence, trauma, we owe them greater access to mental health care at their schools. We must finally hold social media companies accountable for experimenting they're doing running children for profit. It's time to pass bipartisan legislation to stop big tech from collecting personal data on our kids and teenagers online. Ban targeted advertising to children and impose stricter limits on the personal data that companies collect on all of us. Third, let's do more to keep this nation's one truly sacred obligation to equip those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home. Job training, job placement for veterans and their spouses as they come to return to civilian life. Helping veterans afford the rent, because no one should be homeless in America, especially someone who served the country. Dennis McDonough is here, of the VA. We had a first real discussion when I asked him to take the job. I'm glad he did. We were losing up to 25 veterans a day on suicide. Now we're losing 17 a day to the silent scourge of suicide. 17 veterans a day are committing suicide. More than all the people being killed in the wars. Folks, VA is doing everything it can, including expanding mental health screening, proven programs that recruits veterans to help other veterans understand what they're going through, get them the help they need. We got to do more. And fourth, last year, Jill and I reignited the Cancer Moonshot that I was able to start with President Obama asked me to lead our administration on this issue. Our goal is to cut the cancer death rates at least by 50% in the next 25 years. Turn more cancers from death sentences to treatable diseases. Provide more support for patients and their families. It's personal to so many of us in this audience. Joining us are Morris and Candice, an Irishman and the daughter of immigrants from Panama. They met and fell in love in New York City and got married in the same chapel Jill and I got married in New York City. Kindred spirits. He wrote us a letter about his little daughter, Ava, and I saw her just before I came over. She was just a year old when she was diagnosed with rare kidney disease, cancer. After 26 blood transfusions, 11 rounds of radiation, 8 rounds of chemo, 1 kidney removed, given a 5% survival rate. He wrote how in the darkest moments he thought, if she goes, I can't stay. Many of you have been through that as well. Jill and I understand that like so many of you. And he read Jill's book describing our family's cancer journey and how we tried to steal moments of joy where we could with Bo. For them, that glimmer of joy was the half smile of their baby girl. It meant everything to them. They never gave up hope. Little Ava never gave up hope. She turns 4 next month. They just found out Ava's beating the odds, is on her way to being cured of cancer. And she's watching from the White House tonight if she's not asleep already. For the lives we can save. For the lives we can save and the lives we've lost, let this be a truly American moment that rallies the country and the world together and proves that we can still do big things. 20 years ago, under the leadership of President Bush and countless advocates and champions, he undertook a bipartisan effort through PEPFAR to transform the global fight against HIV/AIDS. It's been a huge success. He thought big. He thought large. He moved. I believe we can do the same thing with cancer. Let's end cancer as we know it. Cure some cancers once and for all.
Oh, it's Bono. You too, baby.
Folks, there's one reason why
in
we've
the
been able to do all these
name
things.
of love,
Our democracy itself.
or in a place
It's the
called
most fundamental thing of
Vertigo.
all. With democracy,
He's
everything's
really good at
possible.
telling stories that
Without it, nothing
toe to
is.
his policies that should be
The
bipartisan.
last few years, our
Yeah, he's a good
democracy has been
storyteller.
threatened
He's got that
and
old
attacked.
man,
Put at
you know,
risk.
storyteller energy to
Put to
him,
the test
but not
in this very
the
room on
pathological
January the
lying
6th.
energy that
And
a
then just
Republican
a few
leader would
months
have,
ago,
like Donald Trump, or even just a
an
rank and
unhinged,
file
big
Republican member
lie.
like George Santos.
Assail and unleash the political violence, the home of the then
Let's see,
Speaker of the House of Representatives. Using the
Who do
very
you think
same
the last
language
good
the
president
insurrectionists
was? I don't know by you
as they
mean
stalked
morally
these
good
halls and
or
chanted on January
effective.
6th. Here tonight in this
Biden's
chamber
been both of
is a
those
man who
things,
bears the
relatively
scars of
speaking,
that
right? It's all
brutal attack.
relative. Biden's
But
been a
he's as tough
legislatively
and as
effective
strong and
president
resilient as
despite
they
razor
get.
thin
My friend
majorities.
Paul Pelosi, Paul stand up.
And I think that he's a decent man, right? So. It's Paul Pelosi.
Such a heinous act should have never happened. We must all speak out.
Wow,
There's no place
McCarthy
for
actually
political
stood for that
violence in
one, too.
America. We have to
Probably
protect the
thought he
right
was
to vote,
applauding
not
the guy
suppress
who
the
went
fundamental
after
right. Honor the results of our
Pelosi
elections,
with a
not subvert
hammer.
the will of the people. We have to uphold the rule of law and restore trust in our institutions of democracy. And we must give hate and extremism in any form no safe harbor. Democracy must not be a partisan issue. It's an American issue. Every generation of Americans has faced a moment where they have been called to protect our democracy, defend it, stand up for it. And this is our moment. My fellow Americans, we meet tonight at an inflection point, one of those moments that only a few generations ever face, where the direction we now take is going to decide the course of this nation for decades to come. We're not bystanders of history. We're not powerless before the forces that confront us. It's within our power of we, the people. We're facing the test of our time. We have to be the nation we've always been at our best. Optimistic, hopeful, forward-looking. A nation that embraces light over dark, hope over fear, unity over division, stability over chaos. We have to see each other not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. We're good people. The only nation in the world built on an idea. The only one. Other nations are defined by geography, ethnicity. But we're the only nation based on an idea that all of us, every one of us, is created equal in the image of God. A nation that stands as a beacon of the world. A nation in a new age of possibilities. So I've come to fulfill my constitutional obligation to report in the State of the Union. And here's my report. Because the soul of this nation is strong, because the backbone of this nation is strong, because the people of this nation are strong, the State of the Union is strong.
Yes, Republicans don't find the soul or the spirit
I'm not
of the
new to
backbone
this
of
place.
the nation strong.
I stand here tonight having served as long as about any one of you have ever served here. But I've never been more optimistic about our future, about the future of America. We just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America, and there's nothing beyond our capacity if we do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Joe on the ball tonight. I didn't think I would find the State of the Union speech very interesting. I was very wrong.
Hour and 15 minutes
Me
speech.
too.
The State of the Union is not the only voice in that chamber tonight. He got some words of encouragement from the left side of the aisle and some words of criticism from the other side of the aisle tonight, but seemed to at times relish mixing it up, at other times seemed to be a little taken off guard.
What was an energetic, speedy, a boisterous crowd, at times unruly, but it was a spicy State of the
like how that
Union,
woman's
a very
trying to-
energetic crowd. Chuck Todd.
Look, I thought he was pretty disciplined. I thought the messaging was disciplined. I just was writing this down. He was very much focused
All right,
on
it's
a lot of
10:30,
middles,
so I'm not going to dive
right?
into
the
the
middle
post-mortem
class, the
about
middle
this
of the
until tomorrow. Kind of let my thoughts marinate. But my initial impression was that was an incredibly strong State of the Union speech, especially for Biden. This would be his second one. I don't remember the first one being as good, but to be quite candid with you, I didn't review it like in preparation. But I don't remember my impression of that speech being very good or as good as this one. So yeah, I'll probably do some videos about it tomorrow over the next couple of days. But yeah, initial impression strong. It sounds like you all agree. Yeah, so I'm kind of hyped. I would encourage you all to listen to a lot of the commentary, like NBC, and I'm sure David Pakman and a bunch of others are providing it in real time. Again, I'll do some stuff about it tomorrow once I allow my thoughts to percolate. That was really good, especially with live backlash. No, I agree, man. Completely agree. I think he handled himself. Given the stutter, given his age, given the fact that he has always been gaffe prone, I mean, always, going back decades, but it's gotten worse over time, I expected that he would be very easily just derailed, and he proved that he was not. Super solid. Yep, I think so. But all right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Please hit the like and subscribe if you haven't yet. I'm trying to grow this channel, get it up to 40,000 subs by the end of the year, which I think is possible, especially since one of the videos went viral couple of weeks ago and doubled the subs. We're at like 2,100 now. I'm gonna I've been sick for the last few days, so my content output has been relatively minor, but I intend to be putting out a couple of videos a day. I'm going to try to pair them with shorts. So a video and a short, a video and a short. Try to do 2 of each a day. Yeah, I think we're also with Staxiums and a couple of others still planning on a Sunday political stream. We're also going to have conversations with other people. Like the last week, we had a writer of Some More News, the really awesome lefty content channel with Cody Johnson. We had one of their writers, Ella Furman, she was on and did stuff with us. Had a conversation with us. We actually talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, ended up of all things. But we're going to keep doing that. We're going to try to do that once a week. But please like and subscribe. Jay says, hey, Ruminate, found you from the Destiny stream. Keep up the great content. Love this channel. Thank you. Thank you. Please like and subscribe and spread the word. We want to expand the cult. Spiral, everybody, thank you all, especially you, Spiral, for commenting consistently and engaging. It gave me somebody to play off of. And yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Hey, you. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, and I hope that you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. And if you absolutely hated the video, the best revenge for you is also to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. That'll teach me. If you want to share an opinion or share some feedback, go ahead and leave a comment, all right? 2023 is a year of change, hence the aggressive rebrand and commitment to new content. Inspired by my friends Luke Beasley and STV Philly, my personal goal for this channel is to hit 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So I'm hoping you'll do me a solid by spreading the word and the videos to potential fans and hate watchers alike. And in the meantime, we'll be pondering politics again with you very soon.